Hey Pam,
Hey there.
hi, can you hear me? Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm just checking to make sure that everything's in place before we get started.
Okay.
All right. Hey, this is Terry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see the Welcome to Gateway PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, good. Okay, because I can't see it on my side. Well, I guess I can see the full screen, but I can't see
Yeah.
what you guys are seeing.
No, I don't see the slides, but I see the full screen.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Great. All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute you back. We're going to wait just a few more minutes and then get started.
Okay.
Okay. Guys, we're going to wait probably about one more minute, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. We had a few more people that were going to be joining us today. So I'm just going to wait maybe a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm going to leave you guys unmuted for now because it's just us. We were expecting some more people, and so if people join us during the course of this, I might mute you guys back, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. So I am so glad you guys are here. So I'm really excited. This is our first webinar. I think it's really, really cool that I've had so many people calling me and asking me questions and sending me emails. Without a doubt, I think that we're getting the word out of what we're doing. I really did not expect a lot of people to participate. I didn't expect anyone to really participate today because this is such a, what's the word I'm looking for? It is such a secret issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
People don't like to disclose that they have experienced anything like this, especially in a social setting, which this is a very social setting, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so, but this is being recorded, so that's pretty awesome. And so I'll be able to upload it onto YouTube at a later time. So you guys have questions at any time, just let me know, and we'll carry on, okay?
Okay.
All right, great. So it says, welcome to Gateway to Counseling, and I'm Terry Aziz. Woo, hey, everybody. So just a little bit about me. I always like to introduce myself first. I have a master's in clinical psychology. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a licensed sex offender treatment provider. I am a certified anger resolution therapist. And then, of course, I have over 25 years working in this field. So needless to say, I have a lot of credentials and a lot of qualification to speak on this particular topic. So today we're talking about Me Too, No More. I wanted to start by saying, like, why is this such a hot topic now? In my opinion, we all know this stuff has been going on for a very long time. But I think there's this new movement going on in our society where it's almost like the younger generation are just given permission for people to say, this has happened to me. I don't need to, keep it a secret. I don't need to hide it. I didn't do anything wrong. So it's just gaining a lot of momentum. Why do you guys think it's such a big topic now? Pam?
Well, I think that it took one person standing up, coming forward, saying it out loud that gave permission. I think younger people have more permission to stand up and say how they feel about things than we did as children, or, as young people.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, back in the day, you didn't say anything like this. You kind of kept everything within the family. You kept things to yourself. I think parents were so busy just trying to make ends meet a lot of times, right?
Right.
And so now you have all these celebrities that are being called out for things they did many years ago. And it's just giving more and more and more people permission, both men and women, which I think is pretty cool. Because it's not just ladies coming forward. Some of the guys are coming forward too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like guys are told that, you can't cry, you can't express your feelings. They're always told to, in some cultures, they're told to be really strong. And so it's very hard for them to come forward. And I feel like seeing other men come forward, it helps them to come forward as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially when you have, actors coming forward saying this stuff, right? So
yeah.
If they're, big old macho black men can come forward, surely
Mm-hmm.
you can too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Uh-huh.
And I think
So,
it's very interesting now that they're being believed. Before, you know, they would just kind of discount it as whatever reason, which made more people not come forward.
that's
But
true.
now they're
Yeah.
following through on it.
Hmm.
Yes.
And sometimes what would happen is when someone would go through, you know, being sexually harassed, like let's say an uncle was sexually harassing you and you couldn't, you know, do anything about it, and you go tell your mom, but your mom tells you that keep quiet, don't tell anyone, then you feel like you feel very guilty about it. You feel like you're going to break the family. And so you don't want to speak forward about it. So that's one of the biggest things that happened in the past.
Yeah, and I have that question, why do we carry secrets of inappropriate sexual behaviors? And I think what you said is dead on. It is something that I've heard so many times from, you know, victims, because they're scared. They don't even want to tell on their brother or their sister because they're scared that, you know, dad's going to beat the brother or sister, and then the family's going to be torn apart, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a case where I had an adolescent girl who sexually molested her brother, was sexually abusing her brother. And he was maybe 2, 3 years under her. And he was just scared to tell anything because, you know, he didn't know what his parents were going to do to his sister, and if she was going to be kicked out of the home, and, you know, CPS was going to come and rip the family apart, and those things happen.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but now, like you guys have said, it's like there's been permission granted. I remember back a long time ago, if a woman was being beaten by her husband, for example, she might have called the police many times, multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Police weren't going to do anything about it, right?
Yeah.
So when they changed that, and I remember we had someone in my neighborhood who killed her husband. And as self-defense, she said she had been beaten for so many years, she just couldn't take it anymore. And
Yeah.
this got a lot of attention in my little small town. And laws started to change after that. So I think this is the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, I wanted to just share a little bit about my personal story. I recall dating a guy, and, you know, I had a master's degree in history. He was a school teacher at one of the schools here in the Houston area. But he started like going off on a deep end and experimenting with drugs. And I was like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that. So I terminated the relationship. But one day he called me and he was just like, well, you know, I would like to come and visit you. And I thought, well, yeah, that's fine. You know, we can visit. I thought we would just maybe go out to eat. Next thing I know, he's actually showing up at my home. So I thought, well, no big deal. Let's just go out to eat. And he was like, no, I don't really want to go out to eat. Why don't you go get some takeout and come back? And so I thought, well, no big deal. So I did. And when I came back to my home, my door was locked. And I'm thinking, well, why would he lock my door? And when I came inside, he was just acting really bizarre. And I didn't know what was going on. And next thing I knew, he was attacking me. I mean, it was a fight.
Wow.
I remember just fighting him and tossing him, going back and forth. And it seemed like it lasted for an hour.
Oh my God.
I have no idea now how long it lasted. I would get exhausted. I would, relax, and then I would start fighting again. And at one point, I just looked at him dead in the eyes. He was on top of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, if you ever loved me, you will not do this to me. Please, you will not do this to me. And that stopped him. And, he calmed down and he left. I locked the door, I did not press charges against him, you know.
Mhm.
I guess it was an attempted assault, but it was funny because I never even thought to call the police and report it.
Yeah.
I was dating another guy who was a police officer. I did call him immediately and tell him. And it's strange now that I think about it, he never once suggested that I press charges on him. But he did tell me that he thought that he was strung out on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was acting so bizarre. I knew that he had been experimenting with drugs, and we just suspected that he was really stoned. And so I never saw that person again. But, it was just, I will never forget that in my life. But I just remember fighting like crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
You went into complete survivor mode and that took over.
Exactly. It did take over. And it helped me to survive.
Yeah.
And the great thing was I did not feel like a victim.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all did I feel like a victim. Because I was able to get control over the situation.
Yeah.
And resolve it, where that I wasn't actually sexually abused, or assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a very interesting situation. So today I wanted to go over just 4 types of sexual inappropriate behaviors. Everybody right now is talking about sexual harassment. That's the big ticket right now. But to me, we should be putting all these in the same category, right? Of sexual inappropriate behaviors. So we have the sexual harassment. We have sexual assault, where you know the perpetrator. We have sexual molestation, and we have sexual abuse, right? Which occurs multiple times. So I'm going to go over these in a little bit more detail. And you guys probably know some of this anyway. Sexual harassment, unwelcome sexual advance, requests for sexual favors, verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. We've all seen it. Someone was talking to me the other day about a friend that we both know that has been engaging in these kind of behaviors when they're at these group meetings and when they're at a restaurant, and how they're pulling waitresses and making them sit on their lap, and just doing things that I believe men feel they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they actually view it as sexual harassment.
Yeah. And that's something I feel like we as therapists experience something as well too with our clients. You could just tell when, someone has something, like in their mind, or something that's not, something healthy, like going on in their mind. So
Yes.
you could sense it.
Yeah, you can see it in their eyes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can hear it in their voice, like this quiver in their voice.
Yeah, when I used to work with sex offenders, that's something I would experience sometimes, because you could see that they're trying to be very polite, but then at the same time, their expressions are contradicting how they're behaving,
Right. So out of the women who said that they experienced workplace sexual harassment, only 29% reported it, while 71% did not.
Mm-hmm.
It says that there's a high sexual harassment in the food and service hospitality industry, which I did not know that. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking. I wouldn't know that either.
And I would guess because, when you're working in corporate America, for example, those guys are pretty much taught nowadays about appropriate behaviors in the workplace, and many of them are afraid to lose their high-paying jobs,
Yeah.
But I don't really know if the other industries are being taught the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I just gave you the example of the waitress who is being grabbed and pulled to sit on a customer's lap. right there at the restaurant, and her employers did nothing about it. And this happened multiple times,
Mhm.
where nothing was ever done about it. So it's
Because
almost
they
like,
wanted the business to keep coming back. They wanted her just to adjust. I used to work for an airline at the airport,
yes,
and all they cared about was filling every seat of that airplane. And when men would come out there drunk and say inappropriate things, if I were to have spoken up, I would have been the troublemaker, causing problems, causing the plane not to leave on time. That was the whole mentality.
wow, wow. And I don't even know how students would handle that now. I mean, I have a few friends that are students, because you're right. I mean, guys do get on a plane. They're drinking on the plane. They come on a plane already, intoxicated. And, everybody has these little fantasies of what goes on a plane. And, that's something very interesting to try to get a better understanding of what's going on in that industry as well, because you hear it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that I experienced in airplanes is that when you're sitting like by a guy or something, like I've experienced this with a woman who was sitting in front of me with a guy next to her. He
Right.
kept touching her with his elbow. He kept like poking her. And so she got really mad, and she, called for help, and she said, I don't want to sit by this guy anymore. And he was
Was he doing it
denying
on
it.
purpose? She felt he was doing it on purpose?
She thought he was doing it on purpose. Yeah.
Like touching her breasts and so forth?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Like he kept touching her with his elbow.
oh
Cause
no.
yeah, so those kind of things are like scary even on planes.
Yes. As far as sexual assault is concerned, more than 60% of college women are sexually assaulted in colleges, and 88% of them do not report it. Many of the universities fail to punish the rapists and instead protect them. This has been a huge, huge issue, especially with high-profile universities that have really strong athletic departments,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want their quarterback and their wide receivers and their basketball stars to miss a game, right? Or to be incarcerated or something in the middle of the season, because so many of their dollars are counting on those particular players.
Yes.
And I think that's why it goes so underreported in the universities.
Yeah.
So if women can't count on their universities and local law enforcement to protect them, then who can they count on? The sad reality is that they often have to count on each other for moral support, of course, and themselves to seek justice that they may never, ever, ever receive. I think that is very common on universities, and the guys can say things like, "Oh, I was just, I was drinking. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yes.
I thought you wanted such and such to happen. You invited me here or there." And, it could be something as simple as, "Hey, let me give you a ride back home to your dorm." And next thing you know, that person's all over you, right?
Right.
So,
Um, I don't know if all hospitals do this, but in the ER at UTMB in Galveston, we
yes.
had specially trained nurses called SANE nurses, sexually assault nurse, and they went out and trained law enforcement on how to handle a victim, how to get them to the hospital so that they could be checked out. And they met with a lot of resistance at first.
Wow.
Law enforcement just thought it was all kind of, oh, yeah, she's just crying foul now, but we ended up having men and women come in that had been sexually assaulted, and having that special area really made it made them less of a victim and made it more okay for them to report it.
Pam, can you tell us a little bit more about the men who were sexually assaulted?
Yeah, the one particular one that I'm thinking about, I guess, I can't remember if he was homosexual male, and somebody had slipped something in his drink,
Oh, wow.
and he woke up outside of Galveston somewhere on a dirt road in his own pickup truck, but with his wallet missing, everything, and he had been sexually assaulted. And I thought it took incredible courage for him to come where it's normally women that are coming in and claiming that, and for him to actually tell law enforcement what happened.
All right. Yeah, very good. Good story to tell us. I hadn't heard much, and so I wanted to hear that from you. All right, so sexual molestation. I think you guys pretty much know what sexual molestation is. We tend to think of it more for children, right? Sexual molestation occurs almost every second of every day. Yet it is far too underreported by both children and adults alike. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more here in just a bit. And then we have sexual abuse. We have 1 in 5 women and 1 in 75 men will be a victim of sexual assault in their lifetime. And we're now kind of combining all types, right? I believe that adults don't want to tell anyone that their children have been sexually abused from fear of what's going to happen, not just within the family, but I think there's now a huge fear of CPS as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That if you did everything you could, let me give you an example. So let's say that I leave the house, I run to the store right quick to pick up some milk so the kids can have with cereal in the morning for breakfast. And I leave the 14-year-old at home with the 10-year-old. And there's a neighbor from next door, that's over as well, or a cousin, whatever. And come home and find out that, the 10-year-old is crying because the 14-year-old just sexually molested them, right? And as a mother, your immediate response is going to be crap. Not only are you feeling for this person who was just sexually molested, but it was on your watch, right? And are you going to get in trouble too? Are they going to take all the children away? What are they going to do? And so there's just this huge fear, I believe, in not wanting to get the authorities involved, because the authorities are going to blame the adults for what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just very scary. And I think sometimes that's why adults try to handle it on their own. Okay, well, this person isn't going to come to the house anymore. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I've heard stories of parents, beating the perpetrator, and saying, you better not ever do this again. And so those kind of things happen because I think they're just scared that they don't want, not just to keep it a secret, but they don't want the authorities to disrupt their families.
Yeah.
And we know that doesn't work.
Yeah. It's like their family's already been disrupted, or because, their child's psychologically disturbed now. I mean, it's a scar for their life. Right. And what they're forgetting is that you still protected the perpetrator in a sense. You know what I mean? You have to face a whole lot of consequences, and they also don't get treatment. Yeah. That's what's most important. If you did all that to try to keep it within the family, you're not going to get treatment for either one, are you?
not
No.
them or the perpetrator.
Mm-mm.
And so once again, it's kind of swept under the rug. And is that Yolanda just joined us? Let me see. Yeah, Yolanda.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, so we have these victims and these perpetrators when families just try to keep it within the family, that no one is getting help. No one is getting assistance to overcome this. So let's just go over some of the red flags. I wanted to try to talk about this more in terms of red flags in terms of like sexual harassment. And then we can also get a little bit into red flags for sexual abuse and things of that sort. I kind of think the red flags are pretty much the same. And I'll give some examples of that. But number one, there's an over interest, right? There's an over interest in a particular person. Let me give you an example of that. I remember watching a male, adult male, had to be probably in his late 30s, early 40s, just really being nice to a 14-year-old girl, and just laughing and joking, and that was fine at first. But then it turned into, he wasn't really socializing with the adults. He was only socializing with this 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And he was seeking the 14-year-old out. And I thought, okay, something's not right. And so I had to go up to the 14-year-old and say, stay away from this person. I don't know what's going on, but this isn't appropriate, right? So over interest. Same thing like in the workplace. There's an over interest. There's this touchy-feely, of inappropriate areas or appropriate areas. So, for example, in the workplace, you see the hands on the shoulder. I actually experienced this the other day. I was at an event with someone that I had just met. It was a group of us. And the male, we were all, guys, you're always taking pictures nowadays, Facebook pictures. And, the guy is standing behind me. And before I know it, he had his hand right on my side. And I jumped, because I didn't even know him. I had just met him. And I just thought it was kind of weird. But I didn't say nothing, because I was like, well, maybe it was just me, right?
Yeah,
I really didn't know what to say. So I thought, well, maybe it's just me. And so later we're talking again, because we're talking business, and we're walking through an area, and he put his hand on my side again, but more like to guide me through the crowd or something. But I think sometimes when you have red flags, you're thinking, is that my imagination? Or is this person being just a little inappropriate? Are they just being overly friendly? Now, it wasn't in a workplace, but it was in a a networking environment, right? So I think when you see red flags like that, you don't have to immediately think that it's something, but you need to watch it, correct? I would not want to be alone with that person in a room or something like that. And I'm not saying that person would sexually assault me or anything, but I don't know anything about that person, correct?
Mm-hmm.
yes.
So, and then you have inappropriate touches altogether. You have, the most common thing that I hear is men grabbing women on the butt, right? Or hitting them on the butt. That's a real common one. You gave an example earlier about the man who kept, poking with his elbow the woman on her breasts. That was extremely inappropriate touching. And then there's just overall boundary issues, like they're right in your face. They're right next to you, and they don't have to be right next to you. The inappropriate comments and the jokes. I think that this is by far the what people use as a testing ground. If they can tell you an inappropriate sexual joke when they just met you, they're testing the grounds, right?
Right.
They're trying to figure out, are you going to laugh? Are you going to join into the jokes? Because then they know that they're getting in. We call that grooming, right? Some grooming behaviors. And I think that's what adults do when they're leading towards sexual harassment. When there is sexual abuse, let's say we have a perpetrator, an adult perpetrator onto a child or adolescent, they will do the inappropriate touching. They will start off by putting their hands on your knee, and next thing is on your thigh, and next thing is up, on your hips. And they will gradually move until you feel comfortable, and when they know you're not going to say anything, right? And it's the same thing in the workplace. If a male is inappropriate with you in a workplace and he's doing these kind of things and you say nothing about it, he is going to continue. Do we all agree on that?
Yeah, definitely.
He thinks
Absolutely.
you're giving him permission just by not saying anything.
Exactly. Exactly. And even if you don't know what that person is doing, but it makes you feel uncomfortable, you should go to your human resources, your supervisor, 2, 3 people until someone listens to you and you say, I just want this documented, and I want someone to call him into the office and say that I had a concern. Because I truly believe that if just that is done, he will at least stop harassing you. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they find ways to isolate you. Like, if you're in the workplace, then it's by the cooler, or it's, it's in the lounge area, right? Or by the microwave, and, you turn around and they're right behind you, kind of thing. And you wonder how long they've been looking at you. I had one client tell me that she would be at the refrigerator, bending down to get something out of the refrigerator, and that person would be right behind them, grabbing them on the butt, right? Yeah. So, it's all these ways, these flags that happen. So what do we do when we see flags? Well, this is really simple, but I just think you got to act immediately. You have to stop. You have to tell them to stop. You have to say, no way, not me. Set your boundaries. Don't laugh at the jokes. Be very verbal and tell other people. When I put this slide together, I thought, Terry, this is too easy. It's too easy of what you can do when you see the red flags. So I guess I'll ask you guys a question at this point, like, why do you think people, miss the red flags? Do you think they just don't feel supported and that's why they don't act?
I think they just feel like, the person's being over friendly. Now, if it's something like, grabbing their butt, then that's not over friendly at all. They should be able to recognize that. But in terms of, passing comments that are inappropriate, such as marry me or you look so hot or anything like that, they should be able to, stop that immediately. And, I mean, honestly, in this world, like anything that seems like, like inappropriate, it should be addressed as soon as possible. But maybe things like, passing comments, they might think it's a compliment instead of something inappropriate.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I think it's a fine line that men have to walk when they give a compliment to a woman, right? Because, women dress certain ways and we like to look cute and sexy and show off, our legs and so on. And I think women have the right to do that by all means. And men walk a very delicate line sometimes when, trying to say, oh, you look really nice today,
Yeah.
compared to, oh, you look hot.
Yeah.
Pam, did you want to say anything?
I think that sometimes people come from a shame-based family where the low self-esteem.
Yes.
And so when they see the red flags, they have such a doubt in themselves that they think they're probably exaggerating, or they probably missed something or interpreted it wrong. So they don't say anything because they don't think they'll be believed.
Right. Right. Okay. So, but I do agree that the best way to prevent any further actions when you see those red flags is to be verbal about it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when an inappropriate sexual behavior does occur, I think people still have options. And I think this is where people get stuck. You know, it's happened. And so they feel guilty. They feel like they did something wrong. And so they don't talk about it. But that is the only way it is not going to happen again. And that is to talk about it to every person possible. Not only because you want to tell what that person has done to you, but I think it's a part of the healing process to make you feel like you didn't do anything wrong, right?
Yes, definitely.
So not keeping any secrets, realizing that they are the person that's wrong, not you.
Mm-hmm.
No guilt, no shame. And then most importantly, you just have to get help and you have to get safe. I got to point that out, that you have to get safe. The things that I'm talking about right now is primarily for adults. I think it's very different when you have a child. I think children are getting better at telling teachers, telling school counselors, if not just keeping it within their family. You guys probably realize this, but during the months of September every year, we go through the summer vacation. And in September, when the kids come back to school and things have settled down, we get a lot of reports of abuse, a ton. Things that happened all summer long. And I always thought that was interesting. 25 years of working in this field and working with children, I always thought it was interesting because they waited all summer to get to someone that would hear them and listen to them and do something about it.
Wow.
So when you're a child, you don't know a lot of options to get away from a perpetrator. I did hear a story one time of a young preteen that had gone to her mother, told the mother about the mother's boyfriend was doing things to her. Mother did not believe it. And the girl decided that she would record it. She had a cell phone and she recorded several incidents and then took it to the school and got this particular perpetrator prosecuted.
Wow.
I thought that was extremely smart, to have some type of camera set up in your room. Nowadays, most teenagers have total access to iPods and all those gadgets, right? So they can actually do stuff like that now. But it's very important to get safe. If you're an adult or if you are a child or a teenager, you know someone going through this, you've got to get them safe and you've got to get them out of that environment. So any comments about that? No? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So the mental effects. So we got depression, anxiety, guilt, that victim status, loss of control, loss of sleep, mood disorder, eating problems, you name it, everything starts to come out. And I didn't put all of the effects on here because I work with so many people who have been sexually abused, sexually assaulted, sexually molested, and sexually harassed. And the behaviors that come out is very interesting. You got everything from they're depressed and they're suicidal. They're depressed and they're engaging in self-harming behaviors. They're cutting on themselves. I work with a particular person who just kept scarring her face. And it was, she did not want to be beautiful. She did not want to be pretty. I've worked with adolescent boys who continue to have a problem with defecating on themselves because it's a way of protecting them from being sexually abused again, right?
Mhm.
If you are an adult and you're being sexually harassed in your workplace on a regular basis, you are put in such a predicament because you got to have your job. You got to make the money. You got to support yourself and your family. And where else are you going to go to get another job that maybe pays as well? And so here you are stuck. You're trying to build your career. You're trying to make something of yourself, and you're being harassed on your job. That is extremely, extremely depressing. Um, I'm thinking about, I don't know why I blanked on this, but I remember I had moved to Dallas with my daughter. I was a single mom, and I was very young. I was in college trying to work on my degree, and I had a full-time job. I've been one of the fortunate 40 plus cashiers that was given a full-time job. They only gave it to like six of us out of 40. And I was one of those. And I was very, blessed, and I was very fortunate to get that. But I remember one night as we were closing that I was in this little utility closet to, get the mop and so forth. And I don't know why I was mopping, but I was. And this guy, my supervisor, one of the store managers, came in there and cornered me. And starts with that talk, right? And what he wants to do. And I don't even remember how I got out of there, but I did. But I remember thinking when I was driving home, I couldn't tell no one what happened. I told my best friend who also worked there, and she was a supervisor, but she didn't say anything either. But I needed my job. I was a single mom. I had just moved out there, and I really needed my job. And for a little bit, I was a little depressed, and I I felt anxiety because of going back into the workplace. But I think I was able to give a very clear message to this person that I wasn't going there, and I wasn't going to have any part of it. And he never did it again. Not to me. I don't know if he ever did it to anyone else. But that's the mental effects, right, that a person goes through when they've been sexually harassed at work. You got to have your job. What are you going to do? And I think it's so unfair that you have to experience this mental torment just to go to work and make a living, make an honest living, that you have to go through this. So there's the anxiety. And then, of course, you're always going to think the guilt of, what did I do? Did I wear something inappropriate? Did I say something? Did I look at him a certain way? That's all guilt feelings. And I'm just here to say that, I haven't said this too much so far, but at Gateway to Counseling, that is exactly what we're here for. Exactly what we're here for, because I don't know of too many people that can get through this on their own. I just don't. Do you guys know of people that can really overcome these situations on their own?
No.
No.
I don't either. I mean, I can't think, in all my years of practicing, I can't think of one person who has come up to me and said, oh yeah, I was sexually harassed at my job for a number of times or years or whatever, and I overcame it on my own. Or I was sexually abused by this person or sexually assaulted and I was able to overcome it. You know, it's not like you've heard stories of people who smoke cigarettes and just one day they just stop cold turkey and they're better for it. This is not one of those, because it leaves an imprint, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's an imprint on your brain. And you can think today that you're fine and you wake up in a cold sweat because you've had a nightmare. Or you're in a certain environment and you smell something that reminds you of an incident that occurred years ago. And one of the things that I haven't really talked about a lot today is we've talked about sexual abuse, but we did not talk about the fact that kids are sexually abused and they don't always get treatment, and they become adults and they still experience all these traumas, right? I think I kind of addressed some of that. Yeah, right here. Me Too and daily living. What does a person look like who has experienced these traumas? Well, first of all, they look like me and you, right? When I first started this presentation, I told you of an incident where I was sexually attacked. I wasn't assaulted, but I was attacked by an ex-boyfriend. And I was able to get him to not sexually abuse me, right? But that was very traumatic at the time. So what does a person look like? It looks like me and you. Black, white, Hispanic, you know, it doesn't matter the race. Male, female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the age. Oh my God, guys. You know, I've worked with victims that were as young as 18 months. 18 months. And we've heard stories of people, ladies who are in their 60s and 70s who were attacked in their homes. A burglar broke in and stole from them and sexually assaulted them while in the home. So there's no age, there's no race or culture or color, none of that. It's all of us. And so I want you to know that no one is alone, because so many people have experienced this. We went over all the statistics earlier. And for those of you who joined us late, this is being recorded, so I will try to have it uploaded by sometime tomorrow. But how does a person act when they've been sexually assaulted or sexually harassed or abused? I'm thinking of a particular case right now where the mother had been sexually abused by her father. And she had gone to her mother and told her mother, and her mother told her that, you know, this is just something that happens, you know, to stay away from him. She gave her a few strategies to help her stay protected. And that was it. The mother had also been sexually abused as a child. And so it was kind of like in the family.
Yes.
Yes. And so what ended up happening, this is so crazy, but the mother knew that her father had done this to her. She knew that it was going on within the family, but then she allowed her children to go to that home and to spend nights there. And apparently he was sexually abusing the oldest daughter, and then he started sexually abusing the youngest daughter while she slept in the bed between him and his wife.
Wow.
And it was that daughter who said, and came out. And it was this huge family secret that had been going on since their mother was a child. And so the mother, though, and I think this is most important when we're talking about daily living, the issue is that the mother was zoned out. She was zoned out. She was hooked on drugs because she was so depressed about what had happened to her, and she had never, ever received treatment. So she started using drugs, abusing drugs. She didn't work. She didn't have a job. She would lay on a couch all day and sleep all day and all night. And she was just emotionally unavailable to her children, physically unavailable. The children lived on potato chips and junk food, right?
Mhm.
That's examples of what daily living can look like when you have experienced sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual molestation, and received absolutely no treatment. There is non-trust. There is intimacy issues. I know too many people who say, I will never trust another man. And so now I'm just going to be gay. And I meet a lot of people like that. I know couples who struggle in their sexual relationship because the woman has been sexually abused and she's never overcome it. I know men who have been sexually abused and they have problems in their intimacy with their wives because they want so much control. And you guys can just imagine that. I mean, this man who was sexually molested as a child, never received treatment. He's trying to be intimate with his wife, but he doesn't know how to do it the correct way, does he? And he wants to control. When you lose that much control, you want to control others. And then, of course, you have all kind of marital problems from, people who can't commit, people who want to have multiple partners, and then just spouses who are unavailable to each other. So
I saw a number of teenage girls who had been sexually assaulted at earlier ages who didn't believe themselves worthy of anything, and they got pregnant.
oh yes,
Just, kind of kept the cycle going, because I think the same thing had happened to their mother,
right,
who got pregnant with them, and then, so it goes on if they don't get help.
exactly. All right, so Me Too No More, guys. The bottom line is I want to encourage people to take control of their lives. It doesn't matter when it happened. If you have never gotten treatment before, I urge you, please, 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 to get treatment. We are always here for you at Gateway to Counseling. We are online. We're just a click away, and we are your objective friend. If you need us for one session, if you've gone through this, you will probably need us for more than one session. I'm just going to be very honest with you about that. You're going to need us for a time, but we are here for you. All you have to do is go to our website, www.gatewaytocounseling.com, and click on, a therapist, find someone that you like, schedule your appointment, and have your session. I hope, guys, that this has been helpful for you today. Again, my name is Terry. I am with Gateway to Counseling. We have come basically to the end of our time. Does anyone have any closing comments, 1 minute comment before we close?
It was a great presentation, very helpful.
Thank you. All righty, guys. Thank you so much, and everybody have a good evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.